Sarah, welcome to The Future is Female. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
But I actually live in Vernon Hills now.
No
when I was
way.
10. Yeah. So, have you
Sukasa, best
Oh
restaurant
my God, yeah.
ever.
Gabby Ducharme here with my co-host Nicole Pinter. We have a very special guest today, Coach Herm Edwards.
This is where you come in. Russell Wilson entered the building with a Sue Bird jersey on and says, quote, take it away, Gabby.
He says, quote, "I felt like Sue Bird in the clutch." From interviewing the most influential voices to spotlighting the brightest stars, we represent all leaders in sport. And for even more,
Tune in Fridays at 4 p.m. to The Future is Female to hear Gabby Ducharme and Nicole Pinter break it all down.
welcome back in, one and all, to The Future is Female. I, of course, am your host, Gabrielle Ducharme, joined here, as always, by my legendary co-host, Nicole Pinter. Nicole, how are you doing this week?
This week, sports-wise, not great. Otherwise, okay.
There you go. There is, it feels like you live a double life sometimes. You're like, okay, in terms of sport, I'm struggling. In terms of personal, mental, emotional, I'm doing okay. Unfortunately, they are kind of interconnected with one another. Speaking of sports news, we got a lot to get to today on this show, but speaking of sports news, Nicole, you got some reflection you want to do on your Chicago Cubs. Go ahead, take it away. What's going on with your Cubs?
I do. If you listened to Hypothetically Speaking on Wednesday, you would have heard Vaughn Jones break this news to me basically live as we were recording the episode. Theo Epstein steps down as the Chicago Cubs president of baseball operations after 9 seasons. He never said he'd spend more than 10 years in a place. He stepped down a year early. He knew the Cubs were moving in sort of a different direction, and he didn't want to just sort of spend a year in limbo. He took a 60-win team in 2013 and made them a 100-win team in 2016 and World Series champs, ending a 108-year drought. It was a very slow build from acquiring Anthony Rizzo and John Lester, David Ross, to drafting Javi Baez and Chris Bryant. The last few years weren't perfect for the Cubs. Still 5 straight years in the playoffs, but nothing could take away from what 2016 was and what he brought to the 2016 Cubs. An absolutely magical season. I will love him and miss him forever. Go Cubs.
Go Cubs indeed. And as one chapter for a high-ranking official in baseball ends, another chapter for an extremely high-ranking official in baseball begins. Of course, I am referring to the Miami Marlins hiring Kim Ng as their general manager. What a remarkable moment this is for women in sports, for women in baseball especially, because I feel like baseball is even more behind the times than, say, even the NFL or the NBA in terms of having women in coaching positions and in front office positions and positions of leadership in their team. Nicole, can you just break down, what was your first reaction when you saw that Kim Ng had just been hired on to the Miami Marlins?
Just so cool. Honestly, I was so happy. I was like, I want to go out and get a Marlins t-shirt. I probably still will at some point, but just really cool. First woman and first Asian American GM in baseball. She's now the highest ranking woman in baseball. She's also believed to be the first woman hired as GM of any North American sports leagues. Just really cool to see a woman in a GM spot and an Asian American GM and an Asian American woman in the GM spot in baseball. 30 plus years of experience with the White Sox, Yankees, and Dodgers, and she was also in the MLB commissioner's office. 8 postseason appearances, 6 league championship series, and 3 World Series championships. Well overdue, and she certainly earned it.
Well overdue, not only in her career, but just in the history of baseball. 1869, folks. 1869, the MLB was founded, was established. It's probably, I think, isn't it? It's the oldest major professional sports league in America. And of course, the oldest league is by far the most traditional. Because of tradition, a lot of times people don't believe that women belong upstairs. Well, you know what? It's 2020. It's been over 150 years since this league was established. It's time to have more women upstairs. I'm happy for the Marlins. I'm happy for Kim Ng, who finally is making history, is literally making history. The statement that this moment means for other young women in sports, it was perfectly summed up in a photo that I saw online. It was a little girl staring at her television screen. It was a cartoon of a little girl staring at her television screen with a backwards hat on, and she was watching Kim Ng make history as the first woman and the first Asian American to become a general manager in Major League Baseball. That right there, that tells you the impact that this will have on generations of young women who are either athletes or people who simply want to work in sports. The impact that it'll have on both myself and you. We are a part of that next generation, and then people coming behind us, the little boys and girls coming behind us. That impact will be felt far beyond when our careers start and end, and far beyond when Kim Ng's time with this baseball team starts and ends. So super fun moment, of course, for Major League Baseball, super monumental moment for the league. Hopefully it means that we're turning a corner in professional sports when it means you have leadership and everything like that up top. You have young women in leadership up top. But transitioning, of course, from the MLB over to the NBA. Nicole, a lot of action to get into with the NBA. The NBA offseason has begun. My Woj notifications are on Twitter. Woj bobs are popping left and right. Nicole, what were your thoughts when you saw all that news with trades and then with the NBA draft?
It took a little bit for trades to get started after the deadline, or not deadline, but when it could start passed. And man, was it exciting. I feel like, hot take, the off season is better than the regular season. And I will stick by that take because it's just so fun to see what teams do, where guys will go, and who's trying to get out of where. And I don't know. It's just really fun. But Gabby, run us through what happened in the Valley. Multiple things happened in the Valley this week. But walk us through what happened with the Suns.
Well, okay, so what happened with the NBA Suns was they acquired Chris Paul from OKC. Paul is now going into his 16th NBA season. He was a top draft pick in 2005, shockingly, actually by the New Orleans Hornets, who that same year had to go to OKC to play ball that season because of Hurricane Katrina. They couldn't play ball in New Orleans. Their arena was destroyed by the hurricane. That's just a little fun fact about CP3. Came full circle for him playing in OKC this past season. But the Suns traded away Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre Jr., Ty Jerome, Jalen LeQuay, and a 2022 first-round pick, all for Chris Paul, a 16-year veteran Chris Paul. And what this says about this team is that they are pretty much doing everything they can to keep Devin Booker. We need to do whatever it takes to make the 24-year-old happy. We need to do whatever it takes to show him that he's the future of our franchise, that we want to invest in him. So right now they're getting him a veteran leader to come in, take some of the burden off of him so he doesn't have to play like point guard, shooting guard, small forward every single game. Now he can play shooting guard. He can focus on getting buckets. He's got a floor general that he knows is going to be veteran leadership for this very, very young squad. Now, all that they lost, because they did lose a decent amount, specifically Kelly Oubre Jr. When they lost Oubre Jr., they not only lost a really, really high productive player on the court, but they lost someone who transformed the culture of the team. They lost the man who essentially founded the Valley Boys mantra. Before then, before Oubre Jr., they were the Phoenix Suns. After Oubre Jr. left, they're the Valley Boys. They have so much more swagger to them with Oubre Jr. on this team. So that was a lot to give up. They did give up a lot to get Chris Paul for possibly only like 2 years. But in the grand scheme, if they're able to keep Devin Booker long-term and make him happy, I say that the trade was worth it. I think the trade was totally worth it. You can never go wrong with Chris Paul. There's already videos of CP3 and D-Book popping up on the internet, working out together. Clearly, CP3 wanted to be in Phoenix, so I think it was a win-win for both sides outside of people like Kelly Oubre Jr. Oubre Jr., I think, really loved being on this team, and, 4 days ago, they had their new jerseys coming out, and Oubre Jr. was the star of all of those social media videos. Like, those videos literally went viral, and thank God he wasn't traded, I guess, before those videos came out, because that would have been a bummer for the social media team. Still kind of is a bummer now that he's been traded. But Nicole, what were your thoughts on the deal?
They certainly gave up a lot for CP3. At least it looks so on the surface in Rubio and Oubre Jr. in particular, and a future first round pick. It's definitely a win now trade, which I like. As you said, they're doing what they can to keep Devin Booker. They're trying to show him why he should stay in Phoenix. Yeah. Listen, if they make it to the second round of the playoffs, I think they won this trade. Yeah. And I think it's a good trade for them because they have to do what it takes to show Devin Booker they want him to be here. As far as should the top of the West be concerned about the Suns, maybe more so considering recent Warriors news, but I don't know. I think the West is still pretty stacked. I think the Suns are still going to have a tough time, but I mean, 8-0 in the bubble and still missing the playoffs. It wasn't like you could keep this core together and try and do it again. I don't think Lightning would strike twice.
Right. Lightning was kind of in a bottle in the bubble. And I know, like, when you think about the teams that they have to get through, though, they have to get through the defending champ Lakers. They have to get through the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets are not going away. Like, they have to get through the Portland Trailblazers still. They have to get through, the Golden State Warriors. Even without Klay Thompson, the Warriors are still going to be a really good team. They have to get through, even more talent just like that in the conference. So when you look at that, maybe they're a first-round team in the playoffs, but my God, if you can get through that gauntlet with a 16-year veteran Chris Paul, a Devin Booker, a superstar in Devin Booker, and like an underwhelming former number 1 overall pick in DeAndre Ayton, if you can get through that and get to the NBA Finals, can you share your secret sauce with me, please? Because you understand something that I clearly do not. But moving on, of course, from the Phoenix Suns, big trade for one team that you just go a little bit further west, my Los Angeles Lakers, the defending NBA champions. They acquired Dennis Schroeder in a trade with the Atlanta Hawks. They traded away Danny Green. They traded away a couple of other assets, a couple of first-round picks as well. So they gave up a lot for Dennis Schroeder, but they did end up getting a lot back. Because of what Schroeder can mean for the team long term. So Schroeder comes in as a point guard. He comes in as a guy averaging 18 a game, 4 assists, about 3 rebounds. He's a really, really solid 3-and-D guy as well. He's a lot younger than Rajon Rondo. They expect they will lose Rajon Rondo this offseason, potentially to the Atlanta Hawks, actually, which is very, very interesting to me because Schroeder is coming by way of Atlanta. So I think it was a great pickup for the LA Lakers. I think it gives them the floor general that they need. He's young enough as well. It gives them some fresh legs, even potentially off the bench if they decide to start Alex Caruso. It gives them an option of a 6th man that they desperately need. Schroeder was the runner-up for 6th man of the year last year. So when you look at all that he can bring to the table, he's just a really solid NBA guy. That's what he is. He's a solid NBA guy. So I love the pickup for the Lakers. I think it's going to be one of the more untalked about trades, if that makes sense. Like, it's a trade that's kind of flown a tiny bit more under the radar, as much as you can fly under the radar when you're a Los Angeles Laker. But long term, I think this trade could be what kind of bolsters them in the West, because the West isn't going away. The bubble was lightning in a bottle in a way as well for the Lakers to be able to stay healthy, to be able to stay in one location at one time. And I'm not taking away anything from that championship because I do believe it was a legitimate championship. But now they have to play 72 games from essentially December to July. It's a lot of basketball in like 7 months. So good luck to the Lakers. They're the team that has by far the shortest offseason alongside the Miami Heat. And the Miami Heat are a lot younger than the LA Lakers. So getting younger in the backcourt, I do not think is a bad thing at all. I love the addition of Schroeder. Get rid of Danny Green's contract. That contract was ridiculous. as much as I loved seeing Danny Green in the purple and gold, I think it's a good move. It was a good move to shift him off somewhere else where he can kind of be a veteran leader, maybe make some more money as he moves into the twilight of his career. So, of course, the NBA draft factoring in to James Harden's future as well. Nicole, what were your thoughts last night as picks were rolling in and we still had this massive news that James Harden turned down $50 million to rejoin the Houston Rockets long term?
Well, I think this is so interesting to me because the Rockets are willing to, quote, get uncomfortable with not trading Harden or Russell Westbrook, which seems stupid, very stupid on the surface. Is he done in Houston? Yeah, probably. But the interesting thing about being traded to like the Nets or the Sixers, the Nets are dumb if they don't try to or the Rockets are dumb if they don't try to get Kyrie Irving back. Like,
Right.
There's no way this can be a fair trade because Durant's not going to move, so it's got to be Kyrie Irving. They could get Karis LeVert, there's so many different ways to do this, but I don't think any of them work for Houston if they don't try to get some of Brooklyn's main assets back, and I don't think they will. So it's interesting. It's kind of funny. He turned down so much money. The Rockets are willing to get uncomfortable. GM just resigned, went somewhere else. It's just kind of nothing I can say on air, a cluster blank, but it's just kind of a mess.
You mentioned it. It is such a mess, and James Harden doing what he did by essentially trapping them and saying, I want out. It reminds me of when Anthony Davis wanted out of the New Orleans Pelicans, a little over like a year and a half ago now. 2 years ago, pretty much, was when he said, I want to be traded. And then it took them 6-7 months through the NBA season of him still playing on that team, even though he clearly did not want to be there. That's what this reminds me of. That's what this feels like it could easily turn into for both players. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Houston with both of their all-stars. Of course, shifting to the NBA draft, to the stars of tomorrow. That's what we shift to now. Number 1 overall pick with Anthony Edwards. He went to Minnesota. The Georgia alum was only there for 1 year, made a pretty good impact on the SEC school, but was never really built to stay long-term, much like many lottery picks. Golden State Warriors picked James Wiseman out of Memphis. Wiseman was suspended from Memphis about 4 games into his collegiate career, and then he withdrew from the basketball program and just decided to train for the NBA draft. So he's from Memphis. I feel like there's an asterisk next to that, though, because he only played 4 games for them. Charlotte, of course, gets the youngest and arguably the most talented Ball brother, LaMelo Ball. So that was super exciting to see him, finally get to the NBA. I feel like we've been waiting for that since 2004 pretty much, and I'm pretty sure he was born in 2002. So that just shows how long he's been in the spotlight. Number 5, Chicago gets Patrick Williams. Nicole, your Chicago Bulls, what do you think of that pickup?
Certainly unexpected. I was not expecting this one. I think like a lot of people, I thought he was going to go back after at least pick 10, maybe 20s. There were reports, though, that he was going to get taken 7 or 8, or maybe Phoenix was trying to trade up for him. So it wasn't like there wasn't a market there for him right after as far as the draft. I like it. I don't hate it. Just because it's unexpected doesn't mean he's a bust. That makes me really mad that we haven't even seen him play, and I don't think a lot of people have seen him play, and they're already calling him a bust because his name isn't Denny or Obi, which Obi could also be a bust. I hate to break it to you, but he has a high upside, which I like, and everything AK has said, I can't say his name, so I'm calling him AK, but everything AK has said about Williams has made me fall in love with his plan, his vision, and Williams. He is a high upside, real athletic guy. He can guard anyone. He can work the court. And just because he wasn't a starter, just because we didn't see him in March Madness, which I think hurt a lot of these guys' draft stock, by the way, doesn't really mean anything. When he came in, he took advantage of his minutes. Florida State sort of ran a weird thing where they liked Williams off the bench. So I don't really care that he wasn't a starter. Listen, I like it. I'm excited for the future of the Bulls, and in AK we trust.
In AK we trust. There you go. The Bulls, of course, at number 4, end up picking Patrick Williams. And then Isaac Okoro goes to Cleveland at number 5. I thought Obi Toppin was going to be taken by Cleveland. He ended up, of course, being taken by his hometown New York Knicks, that was a really heartwarming moment to see it all come full circle for him. He grew up in New York City, and he was absolutely overlooked in high school, shot up like 4 inches between junior and senior year, didn't dunk a basketball until his senior year of high school, then went to Dayton, and within 2 years, he is a top 10 NBA pick. What a journey for that kid out of New York City. And then my favorite pick of the draft was probably Onyeka Okongwu of USC, going at number 6 to the Atlanta Hawks. I think Okongwu is one of the more overlooked players in this draft because he comes out of the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 they do not have the same basketball reputation as, say, a school like Kentucky or Duke or North Carolina. The Pac-12 doesn't really have a blue bloods program. UCLA, they're considered a blue blood program a decade ago. Okongwu didn't even go to UCLA. He went to USC. So I think that's one of the steals of the draft. I had Okongwu going at 6. A lot of draft boards had him actually going further down, around 11 or 12. They still had him in the lottery, but I had him moving up to Atlanta. So I love the pickup for Atlanta. I think Trae Young and Okongwu, that's going to be a duo of the future, mark my words. And then, of course, my biggest steal of the draft was Peyton Pritchard of Oregon, going at 27 to the Golden State Warriors. So I thought it was a really fun draft. There were a lot of unexpected trades, a lot of unexpected moves. Hopefully going forward, it continues to be that way. And then transitioning off of the NBA draft from the stars of tomorrow to a superstar who was injured badly, Klay Thompson. Nicole, what were your thoughts when you heard that Thompson went down with yet another, what sounds like catastrophic injury?
Heartbreaking. As soon as people fear the worst, I think it sounds bad. It's feared to be a torn Achilles injury on his right leg. If you remember, over a year and a half ago, he tore his ACL in his left leg. And he would have kept going if he could have. He undergoes an MRI and more tests Thursday, the day of this recording, so there might be official word at the time this is premiering on Blaze Radio. It's just heartbreaking. And if this is how the Warriors dynasty ends, it doesn't deserve to end this way, and especially to such a likable guy. I think everyone loves Klay Thompson, so it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it makes me think that maybe he wasn't fully healed from the ACL, that if there was something wrong with the ACL still, if his leg just wasn't quite strong enough, that maybe he was favoring his other side of his body a little too much, and his other leg essentially just gave out on him. I just speak from experience as someone who has had injuries before, who has had massive surgeries before. If your body is not fully healed yet and you try to push too hard, you end up injuring other parts of your body. I don't know if that was the case here. That's just pure speculation on my end, but I wouldn't put it past it to be at that point. We will wait, though, for official word on Klay Thompson. And transitioning away from the NBA into the NFL, Nicole, Bears Corner, what's going on in Chicago?
Oh, it's bad. I think everyone is now transitioned to being mad at the Bulls for whatever reason. But I think that's more just because the Bears are so bad. They lost 19-13 to the Minnesota Vikings, a team who was 1-5, is now 4-5, and could be second in the NFC North. I think the Bears will probably end third at 8-8. Bill Lazor, this was his first game calling plays. Really good in the first half. Short throws, basically checkdowns, fast pace. Everything was working in the first half. They only got 2 field goals out of it, but it looked good. Second half, I have no idea what happened. Thank God for Cordell Patterson scoring in the third quarter on the awesome kickoff return, because otherwise this offense didn't do anything. Nick Foles went down. He seems to be okay, but we'll see. The Bears brought in DeShone Kizer. Oh, God, if he's the starter, please, no. But he was bad. But it's just all around bad. The Bears are bad. They're going to end 8-8, like I said. No good draft pick. At this point, they should absolutely go back to Trubisky, because at least he can move. And I will continue saying it was never his fault. It was play calling. It's Matt Nagy's ego. Pace has to go, and Nagy has to go. And I'm in pain.
There you go. You're in pain. I saw a tweet from you the other day, and it was just an entire all like 120 characters were just fire Nagy, fire Nagy, fire Nagy, fire Nagy, fire Nagy, and then at the very end it just says start Trubisky. I was like, okay, that essentially bottles it up. That is how you feel in one tweet right there. Of course, so the Chicago Bears are struggling, but transitioning off the Bears a little bit and just into the NFC West, we've got a lot of teams at the top of the NFC West that could make some noise, including, of course, the local team, the Arizona Cardinals. Nicole, what's going on in the NFC West?
Oh my God, what is it? The Seahawks are stumbling. The Rams are taking advantage and hitting their stride. The 49ers remain at the bottom, but they're only 4-6, remember. As far as for the local team, the Cardinals beat the Bills 32-30 at the buzzer. DeAndre Hopkins is insane. You already know the play I'm talking about. I don't need to talk about it. Cardinals, just awesome. Cardinals are fun. Important game Thursday night, which will have already happened at the time this is on Blaze Radio, versus the Seahawks. Watch out for the Seahawks coming with a vengeance. Weird things happen on Thursday night, people. We all remember the last Cardinals-Seahawks game on Sunday night. Weirder things happen on Thursday night, so we'll see.
The shortened week after an emotional victory for the Arizona Cardinals, I'm going to be curious to see how they come out tonight, just especially because of the shortened week and what that team went through, just last week with the game-winning catch. Like he was like triple teamed and he still caught the ball.
Oh yeah, he's insane. Best receiver in the league.
Yeah, he's the best receiver in the league, and Arizona gave up chunk change to get him. Houston Texans, I'm going to be kicking myself for the next decade if the Cards make the playoffs and potentially go to a Super Bowl.
They should have been kicking themselves from the beginning. I've never seen a worse meltdown from a team that was up 21-0 in the playoffs against the Chiefs. I know they were up 24-0, but when they kicked that field goal, everything ended. You could have put the dagger right there. Rip Texans. Anyways, moving on to college football real quick. ASU, another game canceled. Herm Edwards tests positive for COVID. It doesn't sound good. We're just wishing all the best to the football team, and hopefully we can see a game again.
It's at this point it's bigger than football. Whatever is going on in that program, it's bigger than football at this point. It's far beyond any money that's lost in endorsement deals. It's far beyond any scholarship players not getting a chance to play a football game. They need to get healthy. They need to figure out what's going on in that program and get healthy. I don't care how many more games they have to cancel. I don't care if they have to cancel the entire season at this point. They're the biggest competitor this season is COVID-19, and COVID-19 is winning. It's kicking the Pac-12's butt right now. So hopefully that team does get healthy soon. Michigan, what's going on with the Michigan Wolverines, Nicole?
Oh, they're also so bad. At least the Bears have a defense, man. Michigan drops to 1-3 after the 49-11 loss to Wisconsin Saturday night. This is their worst start in a very long time and the worst loss in a very long time. Brady Hoke and Rich Rod didn't lose like this, nor were they ever 1-3 apparently. But they also weren't playing Big Ten specific games. But hey, at least we're learning quickly what Jim Harbaugh is. 18 straight losses as an underdog. That's 0-11 under Harbaugh. Just terrible body language, terrible play calling, coaching. Rich Rod's teams had more heart than this. At the very least, they played with hearts and played their guts out. This team doesn't look like they care. And that's not necessarily on the players. To me, that's coaching at a time like this. You got to get your guys excited for a game like this. This has to be Harbaugh's last year. I don't know how he can recruit with 1 year left on his contract and not giving him an extension. No, I don't want an extension. He's 1-6 at home versus Ohio State and Michigan State. That includes 0-5 versus Ohio State. Just bad, just really sad. I think Michigan's best chance at winning one more game this season is Rutgers. And I'm going to tell you right now, bet the money line on Rutgers. Bet on Rutgers. Plus, I think it's 7 + 10. Bet Rutgers. Absolutely.
There you go. There you go. Michigan is struggling. Chicago is struggling. Nicole's sports teams are struggling, period.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls. Literally, the future of your sports town relies on a team that just took a bench player from Florida State. Good luck, Nicole.
Hey, I have trust in AK. Don't be like everyone else on Twitter now. He's not a bust. And if he is, we'll see. But I'm not calling him a bust straight out of the gate. So everyone, stop it.
There you go.
Bulls.
Maybe, and hey,
AK we trust.
What do I know? Maybe Patrick Williams is the next big thing. Maybe he is the next Michael Jordan, and you guys just struck gold at the number 4 pick. Of course, to end off today, we end off with a new segment on this show. Probably my favorite segment because I came up with it. The Future Fantasies. Mine is a little bit different this week. It's tapping into the Ball brothers' legacy, so Lonzo, LiAngelo, LaMelo, versus the Ngwumike sisters' legacy. The Ngwumike sisters are, of course, a WNBA powerhouse family with Nneka Ngwumike, the oldest. She was the number 1 overall pick out of Stanford in 2012. Then her younger sister, Shanae Ngwumike, who was the number 1 pick out of Stanford in 2014. And then they have another younger sister named Olivia Ngwumike, who went to Rice University, dominated on the basketball court, actually made it to the WNBA, but I don't believe she's playing in the WNBA because she's going on to medical school to become a doctor. So, of course, this whole dynamic between the 3 sibling pairings, the Ball brothers are much more well-known than the Ngwumike sisters simply because of gender. That's the biggest difference. The Ball brothers' legacy, I think, relies more so on what they'll do on the basketball court, and the Ngwumike sisters is more so this bigger picture. What the Ngwumike sisters mean for basketball and for sibling pairings just in sport in general, it's already capped what the Ball brothers will ever do. The Ball brothers might make more money. They might have a little bit more fame just because of their gender and who their father is, but the Ngwumike sisters will make more of an impact down the line than the Ball brothers, because 2 of them are Stanford graduates. One of them, Shanae Ngwumike, number 1 overall pick in 2014, WNBA All-Star, now playing alongside her older sister, Nneka, with the LA Sparks. Shanae is leading a radio show movement with Shanae and Wingo Jr. every single day. She is the first ever African-American woman to be hosting a national radio show day in and day out for ESPN. She gave up her chance to play in the WNBA this season because she wanted to focus on radio. What she's doing in journalism and sports broadcasting for young women of color, what Nneka is doing as the president of the WNBA Players Association, and then what their youngest sister, Olivia, is doing by becoming a doctor after graduating from one of the best institutions in the entire nation. She's no longer playing basketball because she's trying to pursue a life as a doctor. What the Ngwumike sisters mean long-term versus what the Ball brothers' legacy is right now, it's the difference between essentially apples and oranges. On one end, we have a sibling pairing that is going to leave a lasting legacy in the medical field, the journalistic field, the ownership field, the business side of things, and on the basketball court, no less. Like, that's the other thing. They have found success in basketball. Shanae and Nneka is a WNBA champion. Shanae is a multi-time WNBA All-Star, and Olivia could have played on the league if she had wanted to. On the other end, the Ball brothers, they might do some flashy things on the basketball court, but I think people need to look bigger picture when it comes to what kind of impact sibling pairings are making in sports, because the Ngwumike sisters will make a longer lasting and more inspirational impact than the Ball brothers will. That's my future fantasy for this week. Nicole, what do you want to do to end off this show?
I do have something to add to the Ball brothers' legacy. Wednesday night on The Masked Singer, Lonzo Ball was unmasked as a whatchamacallit. This is spoiler alert, apologies. But Lonzo Ball was unmasked like a half hour after LaMelo Ball was drafted. I don't know. That's just so funny to me. I just want to know if, like, they switched back and forth. Like, did they know? I have questions about this. So the Ngwumike sisters, if they really want to cement this, hey, one of them could still be unmasked. But if they want to cement their legacy, one of them's got to go on The Masked Singer. That's all I'm saying.
I think the Ngwumike sisters have done the legwork at this point. So I think if they can go on The Masked Singer and really just cement that legacy, put a little bow on it, I think it's easy money compared to being a WNBA champion, a history-making sports broadcaster, and becoming a doctor rather than playing in the WNBA. I think they can make it happen. I think they can. Of course, that is all for us today on The Future is Female. For Nicole Pinter, I'm Gabrielle Ducharme. We will see you guys next time. Please, until then, stay happy, stay healthy.